Everyone, welcome back to Manufacturing Hub on this beautiful, well, I think at least for most of us, spring Wednesday afternoon here in March. If you guys are new here, welcome. If you've been to Manufacturing Hub before, welcome back. This month, we're talking all about ERPs. We've had a couple of conversations, episode 199 and episode 201, talking about ERPs and the how do we come in from a consulting sense with Elvis on episode 199. We've talked about how do we implement large-scale ERPs from an enterprise organization last week on episode 201. And this week, we're going to dive into almost the exact opposite side. We're going to go talk about working with machine builders. We're going to go talk about working with systems integrators. We're going to go talk about perhaps working with people who use a lot of software on the implementation side, but maybe run their entire businesses off of an Excel spreadsheet or a piece of scratch paper that just lives on their desk all the time. So we're super excited to go ahead and jump in. Before we do so, a couple of quick notes for everyone. First, we want to thank Talon, our sponsor, for sponsoring this entire theme. If you guys are looking for a new ERP, definitely go ahead and look at Talon, which is TALAN.com. We will go ahead and drop that website both in the chat as well as in the show notes, so you guys can go check out Talon to go help through that selection and implementation process. And beyond that, we love to have fun. That has always been the goal of Vlad and I and this show and conversation. So we want to know what's going on with you guys. Please feel free to go ahead and say hi in the chat. We will do our very best if you guys have questions to go ahead and answer the questions in the chat. Most of the chatting is on LinkedIn and YouTube if you guys are watching live. So please feel free to say hi. Please feel free to ask Jay and RJ as well as Vlad and myself some questions. And beyond that, please feel free to go ahead and talk to everyone else. But without further ado, everyone officially welcome to Manufacturing Hub episode 203. We'd like to welcome our guests Jay and RJ to the show today. Guys, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us, Dave and Vlad.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for taking the time, Jay and RJ. Before we dive into the topic, I guess, of ERP systems, could you give us, in that order, a little bit of your background? How did you get into, manufacturing, industrial automation? Walk us a little bit through your career and ultimately what both of you are doing today.
I'll go first. I've got the automation part of that covered. So I've been in the custom automation field, material handling and packaging automation probably for almost 25 years in total. Started right out of university during doing summer stuff and designing labeling equipment. And I've worked for companies ever since. And ended up here coming off of being a client, loving Total ETO so much, and deciding to join RJ and his team and bring it to other integrators and machine builders.
So my background is actually in computer science and programming. So my first job, even as a student, was as a developer on an enterprise system for custom machine builders and manufacturers. It really ultimately was this product. And I fell in love with it and spent most of my career within this product and this scope. So I've been consulting and all aspects of enterprise software for machine builders for nearly 30 years now.
If I could ask you, I guess, both a little bit of a follow-up, but, related to the software side, right? So to me, a computer science major is typically, how would I say, it gets pulled away from manufacturing in many aspects, right? Into, I don't want to say more lucrative opportunities, but I know there's a lot of companies competing for software talent, right? So how was, I guess, developing and at the same time selling a software product into the manufacturing space been over the years?
So when I first started, I wasn't in the sales side, right? So I was just the technical back end, learning programming and coding. But as I saw from my colleagues, it was tough in those days. The manufacturing industry has gone through a lot of ups and downs over the years. But in the last few years, maybe not including the last year or so, at least in the certain vertical that we focus on, it's been an incredible last few years. The later part of my career is when I've spent time in sales, marketing, and those aspects. But in the earlier part, as a developer, I was sheltered by my peers and my colleagues from a lot of that part of the market. So I always saw secondhand or thirdhand what I did see, and I know that a lot of clients have been through a lot of tough times and persevered. So it really builds a lot of character, and those who made it through a lot of those challenges. And then there's a lot of startups and new organizations as well who weren't around perhaps back then through some of those more difficult times.
And I guess through like Jay's background, I guess you can bridge some of the knowledge gaps when it comes to, being a very technical software developer, but maybe not necessarily have lived some of those OT challenges. I guess how do you figure out, or I guess how do you ideate what to build, and how do the solutions make sense for the end users, coming from the maybe more IT background and not having been, I guess, on the plant floor? How do you...
It's a really good point. It's a really good question. Myself, it took me a long time to really start to understand what our customers go through, because I'm not at the customer. I'm not the guys who are building machinery and equipment. I'm not going through those challenges. But when you've spent as much time as I have talking to customers and working through their challenges with them over the years, you start to build that knowledge. But it's still never the same as a firsthand experience of someone like Jay. So we've actually been fortunate enough to have lots of people on our team who've come from the industry, who've brought their various experiences. Again, similar to Jay's story, but different stories, of course. Everyone having their own areas of expertise, their own paths, their own longevities in the various organizations. But we really heavily rely on their inputs, and also just listening to our customers to try to understand and see commonalities between the challenges that they have, or the goals and objectives they have when implementing software.
Gotcha. And I guess Jay, let me throw a question at you before I pass it on to Dave. Right. So I know obviously a little bit of your history in more detail than the listeners or the viewers, but I'm curious, I guess, to understand why focus on the ERP side, right? And the reason why I ask this is because I think when you have good knowledge in software, you could be building, an MES or a CMMS, right? Or a lot of different subcomponents. And I think that there's a lot of competition on the market on that side. So maybe curious why the ERP space was ultimately what you ended up on.
Well, for me, the ERP space was I had to look for it, and I really had to search for it to find it, right? As a machine builder, we have very unique workflow. Everything deals with a project, right? We need to know everything from estimating and engineering that's not static. Like, you're building a toaster, you design it once or twice, couple iterations, then you produce it, en masse. It doesn't happen in our space. And so when I had to do that search myself, I was actually a Total ETO user twice. And after I used it the first time, when I had to bring it in my own company, again, the second time, I really had to look for it. I eventually found Total ETO again. RJ was just getting on the cusp of doing some really big, marketing that made it a little easier to find. And we caught each other at the right time at that point in my career. And so it captures everything that we do as a machine builder. And that's why I got into it. It ran my organizational life for a couple of years before I came and joined the team. And that it just guided me in that direction. So I never thought I would be in software at all, right? That's, other than playing with PLCs and doing things like that, I did not think that this was a path that I would ever take. I always thought I would be building conveyors and packaging automation and other things that had that similar nature. So now I have to live vicariously through my clients, right? And see all the cool stuff that they're building, because I don't quite get to do it anymore. But I get a different sense, right? I get a different sense now of helping them with their problems that I had. And now I can show them how they can achieve the same results.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. Jay, if I may, I want to get into some more of the specifics. But before we do that, if someone listening at home hasn't lived the life of a machine builder. I know you said you spent more than a decade working within that specific industry. Can you kind of broad strokes what that life is and maybe what some of the pain points are that have led you to needing a solution like a total ETO or like an ERP or something along those lines in general, please?
Yeah, well, the machine building life is dynamic, right? We quote projects. We quote projects based on a scope of work that we get an outline. We got to move this many cups a minute, put it through a line, invert them upside down, and package them in a 12 pack and spit them out the end. That's all fine and dandy. You run into all the variables that you see on those cups. They might not always be the same shape. They might deform. They might not move that fast without spilling all over the place, right? Those are all the things that you have to challenge. So all of that going through engineering, when you start a project, you guess how much it's going to take to do it. You've never really done it before, right? Maybe something similar, but not exactly the same. And then you have to manage that project. You sold it for $100,000. Are we going to make any money? Well, you have to be able to see that all the way through the process, not just at the end, because by then it's too late, right, to make engineering corrections. And it's almost guaranteed that an engineering design will not go the first time and one and done and we're all happy. It's going to have a couple of iterations, and we don't have the schedule to, just design the whole thing, test it 50 times, then do it again and keep track of that. So system like Total ETO keeps track of all of those dynamic changes as you're going along, allows you to get a jump start on certain parts of projects and build the stuff that you're pretty confident it's going to work, and then work on those other details and follow that all the way through, and keep track of all those details. And so it's very dynamic. I'd say that's the biggest answer to your question there, is that it's not a static world. It's constantly changing by the minute.
Absolutely. And then if someone isn't using software, someone hasn't found an ERP type solution, how do they go about doing that? I feel like I know the answer, but I want to make sure that
Yeah.
we go lay the groundwork as to maybe give some people nightmares at night as to how their machines are being built.
Well, I'm going to say the word and they give me nightmares. Spreadsheets, right? Like that's the main thing. A lot of people have created a system of spreadsheets, or they might have created their own little Access database or something that they've put together, for their company that has to be maintained. A lot of it's manual, right? They have spreadsheets for engineering, spreadsheets for purchasing, sure, but they're not connected, right? They don't follow the whole process. But that's typically how we've done it. That's how I did it at all the companies that I worked for before we went after a system. Lots and lots of spreadsheets and lots of manual work to keep track of it. And project managers stay busy keeping track of all that.
Absolutely no. Thank you for that. And I know as we were talking before the show, RJ, you said that Jay is one of 6 or 7 employees who previously used Total ETO in the past and have now come to work for Total ETO, which seems really special. I guess I want to ask Jay if he can tell everyone a little bit more of that story. It's one of the top things that resonated with me the first time Jay told me about this new place that he was working, because it's not very often you see someone say, hey, I love this so much, I'm going to go leave the specific niche of the industry that I'm working in and go help bring this to more people. So I was wondering, Jay, can you tell us a little bit more about the story, and maybe RJ, you can expand upon that and kind of the other people who have followed similar paths?
Well, we'll context it first, and we'll inflate RJ's head a little bit because a lot of it has to do with him, right? Software is great, right? But you always have to go work for a great company too. So, talking to RJ through the process and other people that worked at Total ETO at the time when I was working and using with the system, they understood what I was doing, and that was great, right? And I could see the atmosphere in the background of how everybody worked at Total ETO, and you could talk to anybody. Pretty much, everybody was accessible at the company, which is another reason why I loved it and I wanted to come and help grow it. But yeah, other people here are similar. I mean, I was in operations, sales, and estimating side of things a lot. We have people that worked in engineering that were using our CAD add-in tools, and they saw the benefits of being able to keep track of that. Project management, like I said in the last question, very important, right? Seeing all those details. So I think we've all had the point where, when we went out to look for employees, they weren't working for our clients at the time. Let's preface that. RJ doesn't like to, get into that side of things, but most of our employees didn't work for our clients at the time, and they had been past users, but we knew that they had experience. We keep in touch with a lot of our clients, and when that situation arose and said, "Hey, we need somebody to fill this role. Who would be ideal for that?" Obviously, somebody that knew Total ETO and came from the space would have great criteria for it. Those are how the questions evolved. So mine have been a little bit different. I went and approached RJ directly because I loved it so much. That was the reality of things. Is I saw Total ETO, I saw the benefits. I thought it was crazy. I was working for a smaller company at the time, and I just saw a growth path that we could take this software and explode it from what it was, even when I joined almost 4 years ago, and bring it to even more people. But there wasn't enough people getting the benefits. So
let me ask you, I guess. Go ahead, RJ. Go ahead.
Well, you asked me to expand on it. I don't know that I need to, but if you need me to, I'm here to. But if you have next question,
yes,
by all means.
No. Go ahead.
I'll keep it short. We've got a lot of great customers, and several people that we've worked with over the years have approached us here and there and said, "Hey, we'd love to have an opportunity if you guys have an opening." Sometimes we've had opportunities that are open, and sometimes we haven't. Sometimes they're from former clients. Everyone's got a different story. Everyone's got a different set of backgrounds. That they've come from. Some have spent time in procurement. Some spent time in project management. Sometimes some people have come from an engineering background or had many hats at their organizations, estimating, applications engineering. And so timing is a big importance. And, and when we're looking or need someone at that time, and that passion has been really key as well. Usually when they're approaching us and stuff like that, you can see the passion that they have and working with us through the years before that. And you've already built a rapport and, a connection with these people. And they see what the software can do for those types of organizations and the authenticity they bring to our customers when they come on board because of the stories that they have, like Jay has and the other colleagues of Jay's that have similar but different stories. Really resonates with our customers, and it connects with them, and we actually understand their problems because we're so focused in this vertical, right? And there's a lot of people who understand a lot of things about a lot of other areas. That's not what we do, but we can connect with our customers because we focus on this area, right? So.
Let me ask you maybe a definition question, right? And it's for both of you, really. I think that there's still a distinction, and I don't want to assume that our audience understands the difference maybe between SIs and machine builders. Are you seeing those customers obviously they have overlapping challenges, right? But do you see them as maybe two somewhat different entities? And could you define maybe what some of the challenges are in those two buckets, SIs versus machine builder?
Well, SIs, they're more service oriented typically. Again, a lot of people put that integration stamp on the back. A lot of our clients are robotic integrators, so they are physically designing the mechanical systems, making those parts, putting the system together, and then doing the integration into the complete package. Versus an integrator that's working more on the large ERP side on the manufacturing structure, coming in after and doing the programming work of the whole batch system that has been installed or upgrades and things like that. A lot of times those integrators will have panel builds that are incorporated that they're designing, and so we can obviously deal with that side. That's still very ETO or engineer to order type function, where they're designing it unique and custom every time, which is which is where our system is really that guiding piece. Machine builders themselves, anybody that has that label definitely has more complex bill of materials and things like that typically. But we can work through service projects. We have lots of clients that do things like time and materials, which would obviously come up a lot more in the system integration side. But we're still dealing with things as a project. So anybody that's working through things as a project, and tracking quoting, tracking some build elements, tracking time and materials to the project, that's what Total ETO is meant to manage.
Gotcha. And I guess I think the interesting point, and maybe a thought or question for you, Jay, is the machine builders that you're typically working with, are they always doing custom machinery, or there's an opportunity for them, again, maybe through your solution or just organically, I want to say, to start maybe building similar machines? Like, have you seen those types of traditions or distinctions between those different challenges?
Yeah. Well, it's similar machines. They're easy. That's the way I context it. It's easy to have a bill of material and repeat it. We have tools in Total ETO to help with just that stuff, like copying projects forward, using those types of things. Obviously, everything you do in the back for the shop is already set up and pre-established, and you have the easy button for doing that. That's repetitive manufacturing. The challenges come in the unique stuff, of course, and that's what Total ETO really roots out. But anybody that is doing standards, yeah, they can flow through the system. But anybody that is doing custom stuff, they have those unique challenges that they need those other elements for, that we're one of the only systems out there that have it.
Gotcha. Dave, any thoughts on your side?
Yeah, absolutely. RJ, I feel like we've been asking Jay a whole lot of questions. I'd like to come to you,
Sure.
and I'd like to perhaps look at the going and bringing ERP to these smaller SIs and machine builders from a different light. So can we perhaps get you to go put the RJ consulting cap on
Sure.
from earlier in your career, when you're looking at going and having these conversations with the smaller groups? Do they immediately see the need and the value for a piece of software to go help run, this part of their business? How do those conversations either? I mean, I especially would like to know how the conversations went early on when you were looking at growing the organization.
Sure. Well, we've been growing this organization for some time, and when we start talking to a client, a prospect, especially if they already have identified that they want a software system, it's a little bit of a different conversation if they haven't made that distinction yet or had that decision made yet, or maybe they have a system today that's not fully working across their company versus a company has no system, right? So conversations go in different directions based on those roots. Having a system, not having a system, or not even knowing that they need a system yet, or what the benefit would be. So if a customer, earlier on, we were dealing with more people who were reaching out to us, right? The first level of sales is usually, inbound sales. So when they're approaching us, they've already identified that they need a system, and what they have today isn't working. Usually, in our case, especially with the small guys who are really, really designed for, they don't have anything, and there's not a lot of affordable solutions. I was listening to some of your other podcasts from earlier in the week, and the larger tiered systems, the big ones, they are usually going after those larger space. It's just not affordable for little smaller organizations. And I don't like use, maybe the word little is wrong. Smaller organizations, they have similar challenges, but they don't have the budget or the time or the effort or the energy or the manpower to really implement those larger, more complex systems. So when they'd come to us, they'd have already kind of tried looking at other systems and felt discouraged usually. But once they start seeing the things we do, we would hear comments like, "Are you spying on us? Have you been tapping our phone lines? How do you know that we're having these challenges?" And they would start to chuckle. And that's when you're really starting to really hit their key pain points, is you're starting to understand your customers when they're making those types of comments, and then they're starting to refer it to other people. One of our customers, after they found our software, told us that they called up 2-3 other organizations that they're friends with in their area and said, "We found the system. We've been searching for years." So word of mouth has definitely been a big part of that, and serving your customers really well with high standards of customer service is a big part of that for us.
Are you able to share, I guess, some of the pain points that they would typically experience, right? Because I think organizational challenges are not always obvious, right? So as you mentioned, maybe if they're not calling you yet, they need to experience that first before they see that there is an opportunity maybe for change. What do those pain points look like?
Yeah, it's a loaded question. There's lots to go over there. If they're coming from a spreadsheet world, it's the managing of the spreadsheets, it's finding information, it's making sure information is available, it's maintaining those spreadsheets, things like that. Those are common problems that any company who doesn't have a good system that fits them is going to face. That's not unique to custom machine builders or systems integrators. That's a common problem that organizations will have, and some people will be shy of ERP systems because they've seen big price tags or because they've tried and failed, because it can be a very difficult thing to implement, especially if you make the wrong decisions or you have the wrong people or you're not ready for the change. There's a lot of reasons it can be challenging. For a customer who's coming to us with already a system in place, they'll usually know what the challenges and gaps are between those systems. We're often a first system for many organizations, and we're often the last system for those organizations. They will be able to scale and grow with us as well. The pain points are once you get into the actual vertical that we focus on, there's a lot of pain around parts management. Inventory is not maybe the right word for a lot of our organizations. The clients that we work with, inventory is actually just the leftover parts, the things that they didn't end up utilizing when they were putting their final machine or panel or whatever they were building together. It's stuff they thought they needed, but due to the nature of complex custom design, things were procured and the design changed, and you have stuff left over. I like to equate it to IKEA. Every time you assemble IKEA furniture, you've always got some stuff left over, right? Trying to figure out, did I mess something up, and just sweep it under the rug. That's kind of the world for them. But the fact that they have to go through this complex design iteration process, designing something new for the first time. It could be something similar to something they've done before. It could be something completely new that they've never done anything like this before, and then have to procure and fabricate all the components because they can't stock everything because they don't know what they need until they need it, right? It's a very common issue. They might be able to stock some common components and stuff, raw materials, but a lot of stuff's got to be ordered directly to the job or made custom for the job. So that creates a lot of challenges in tracking and managing that, and then sort of compressing that timeline. The tendencies from engineering are to design and hold everything back until everything is done. And that creates lead time challenges on your procurement side and creates rushes there. It can create missed opportunities for part savings for pricing. If you're rushing to buy parts, you might not be able to shop for good pricing. You might have to pay for expedited freight. Versus if you have lots of lead time between engineering to procurement, sharing those BOMs early, you're able to start sourcing materials more quickly. If you're fabricating components, you're not as rushed. You can maybe reduce on some overtime costs or from expedited costs if you're sending it out to third-party fabricators or people who do all kinds of processes from black oxide to or whatever those processes might be. Lots of challenges there, and then when you go to assemble the final product, not having the parts you need, right? So that's a huge challenge. It causes major delays in getting equipment out the door, getting those projects out the door to your customers so you can get paid, right? So those are a large amount of the challenges, and then there's little challenges along the way with each of these steps, like just how the nuance and how we help move that information along for the various areas.
Jay, any thoughts on your side? I know you talk to a lot of your customers as well.
I mean, it just comes down to transparency and information availability, right? Like, again, it's too late to know stuff about a project when the project's almost over. You have to know it at every stage. I have to be able to follow along. A lot of our clients, small or larger especially, they get into things like percentage complete revenue recognition. And you have to do an analysis every 2 weeks. Where are we in this project? Because we're going to claim those. And Total ETO allows you to make adjustments, right? Like we thought we had 100 hours of engineering. We're done 50, but there's no way we're halfway done, right? We're going to need another 50. And not just, now we're only 33% done. Those are all factors that you have to see live in your projects, that if you're doing it with, spreadsheets or a system not meant for this industry, all of that is a manual exercise that takes hours every month. And our aim is to get rid of a lot of those just little activities that, if you knew where they were all the way along, it would save you those hours, and it's going to spit that stuff out for you automatically.
Yeah, and I like that you brought that up. Oh, go ahead, RJ.
And then your customer throws in a change order and asks you to change the scope right in the middle of it all, right? Just make it that much more fun, or 10 change orders along the way.
Right in the middle would be nice, to be honest with you. Usually it's a couple of days right before the project is due. But yeah, I've certainly experienced that many times in my career. But I guess what I wanted to maybe take a bit of a step back and, also mention that it is not just the project management tool, right? An ERP ultimately touches, and I was going to say, Jay, that's why it's good that you brought this up, a lot of the financial aspects as well and other departments within an SI or machine builder. So maybe could we expand on that a little bit more, right? So not from a pure project management standpoint, what else kind of ties into ERPs of this sort of nature?
Well, the project managers are the overview guys, right? Like they see everything. But Total ETO starts right at estimating, right? It's a tool to look up old projects, see how well they did, so that I can build this new project that I'm working on. Engineering, 100%. Obviously, we talked about that a little bit before. The bills of materials and dealing with that change management that happens during engineering. So we're going to track all of that. That is directly related, as RJ called out, to procurement and the shop processes. So those flow through Total ETO as well, amalgamating purchasing across 10 different projects. Hey, we need the same bearing. Well, now I can order 20 of them instead of 2 for each project. Well, hey, our price we got a great quantity discount there. Shop function, same thing, organizing the shop, any parts that we have to fabricate, making sure that the time is tracked to those parts so we know how much they cost. And it will lead all the way through to even post sale stuff like spare parts, right? So the client needs a spare part. Well, Total ETO tracks spare parts in the spare parts list, and we can pull those up into a quoting feature to, hey, these are all the spare parts for the machine. Is the one that they're asking for really on that machine? I used to have that problem all the time, that they're asking for a belt that wasn't even from that machine. It was from a machine we sold them 10 years before that. Right? Why do you need that one? That's not going to fit. It's not going to help. So all that information is all connected. So every department, and then of course the financial aspect of being able to see things like project costs. That's more of a project manager view, where they're seeing that live and being able to tell engineering they're crazy. You can't put those gold-plated motors on this project. I only put it silver stuff in the budget, right? And you have to deal with that accordingly. And then accounting-wise, being able to see it at the end of the projects too, and run percentage complete revenue recognition or work in progress WIP numbers and deal with that kind of stuff. See how much you do have in inventory if you do happen to be one of those companies that keeps it more than just the boneyard of old project parts. It's what I call what RJ was talking about before. It was definitely usually the boneyard, because they never saw the light of day again, but you always wanted to know you had them, right? Just in case. And so every department there, I think I covered off. Is there anybody there I didn't cover off that works for a machine builder or integrator? In everything. So I think it covers pretty much everybody in some aspect.
No, I think go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's interesting. I think the fact that an ERP is as far-reaching as it is fantastic, but it's also a little scary. And RJ, you made an interesting point that you guys coming in, many times you're the first ERP or ERP type solution that some of these smaller to medium-sized groups will ever see, which I imagine brings a whole host of interesting opportunities and also issues. I don't know if Jay, if you or if RJ want to go kind of walk through what being the first to go implement this, the first to go put some structure and maybe process in place that didn't exist in the past, what that looks like, how that's typically received by your customers. I'd like to dive into that a little bit more if you guys don't mind.
I'll let you take that one, RJ.
Sure. I personally love that we can help small businesses. You know, I just, we're a small business. I've always been, working at small businesses, and they make up the backbone of our economies, right? And so, to me, to be able to help them is very meaningful, and it's actually game changing too for them, right? It's literally the words that we hear from our customers. I don't mean to boast, but it can be a game changer for a lot of them, right? Being able to see that organizational benefits that they get out of the system, and then be able to scale that as well. So, you know, we've had lots of customers who've started with us when they were 20, 30 employees and have grown to over 300-400 employees over the years, and being able to implement the same software and just scale it up, set up the processes, or re-implement certain sections and add on modules and make some incremental changes throughout the years, and partner with us. Really, you know, it's not a one and done sort of thing. So I personally love that aspect. And even if they don't have plans of growth, if they can be more well organized, they can compete better for projects, they can, run a more profitable business. They're employing our people from our industry. So it's important to me to be able to serve that space. But it's not without its challenges, right? Like, with change management is a big factor there, and it's not like everyone is ready for that always. One of the biggest challenges, I think, can also be just being busy and pulling the trigger at the right time. A lot of times when we hear from customers and they're ready to implement, they're already very busy and needed a system like last year, kind of thing, right? So it can be a challenge to juggle the priorities of implementing a software system and also still managing to get those projects at the door. And we see that more with our smaller organizations, the customers we work with. For some of the larger organizations we work with, they'll have more dedicated teams who can implement a software system in a more sort of dictated sort of style, and can get those changes pushed through and can get the software implemented. So that's what I see as some of the differences. I don't know if that was exactly your question or not, but anyways, Jay,
Absolutely.
did you have more to add to that?
I think that covered it from my aspect. If that was Dave's question, I think you did a good answer there.
No, I think it was good. Let me ask one follow-up, and I'm hoping RJ, you or Jay have the silver magic bullet, right? I feel like lots of people, especially working with OT organizations, lots of times they get the call, as you mentioned, to go say, hey, we'd like to go implement this solution, but they're already 6 months or a year behind. Do you have a path to go convince people to start the implementation process earlier? Or are you guys also to some extent stuck in hey, we're going to come in and there are going to be competing priorities and we just have to go hit our important implementation tactics and the organization will eventually, maybe a little bit slower, but the organization will go pick up on everything that we're doing?
We try to educate. That's the best thing we can do is educate people and say, hey, the right time to implement is sometimes when you're not so busy, when you're anticipating the work, right? It doesn't mean you can't implement when you are busy. Of course, it's just more challenging. And for the smaller businesses, they usually need to see the business coming in, right? To feel comfortable taking on the commitment of a system. It's not just the costs of the system, it's also the soft cost and knowing that it's going to get us the operational benefits. And times can be trying, right? We've had lots of periods over the years where business can be good, business can be bad, and people go through cyclical areas, especially if they serve automotive industries or things like that are very cyclical in nature. So we have little control. And either way, we can help you implement the software. But of course, it's always better when you can prioritize it, right? Because it does require effort on your side, dedication, commitment on your side to be able to make that happen. And that's going to be true not just of our product. I'm sure that's going to be true across all industries, all ERP products, or any enterprise system, really. not even enterprise. I mean, you could be any kind of system if you're implementing it. Nothing happens unless you prioritize something, right?
Yeah, it'll be
Absolutely.
the same CRMs, no, whatever you're doing, right? They all take some level of effort to get
Hmm.
in and put in properly, right? And have somebody that's going to champion that process. We always say everybody we work with has to have a champion or a couple, depending on their
Hmm.
size, that are going to steer that ship as we go through this process, right? And make sure everything gets aligned to what you're doing for the best outcome.
Something I've learned in my career, nothing gets done accidentally or when you have free time. You have to prioritize and make something a priority. If you just kind of say, "Oh, when you have spare time, please work on X,"
Hmm.
you never get spare time, and X never gets done. And it's also the switching gears. Every time you're switching tasks, the inefficiencies caused by that alone can really prevent you from picking up momentum and getting stuff done. So focus and prioritization is really helpful to get anything accomplished, especially an ERP implementation.
Absolutely agreed. I want to go talk a bit more about implementation, and I see Vlad has a question, but first we have some people to thank. So we want to thank Talent for sponsoring this month's theme and episodes, all focused on ERP platforms, trends, and implementation. Talent helps manufacturers navigate the tricky landscape of ERP adoption, migration, and integration work across SAP, Microsoft Dynamics, Oracle, and other platforms. Talent's mission is to provide active guidance through the entire process, from initial consultation to post-deployment support. The combination of the right software and the right support can result in improved productivity, better data access and insights, cost savings through automation, and better overall manufacturing performance. Now, if you guys are at the American Manufacturing Summit, which is going on today and tomorrow, March 19th and 20th, go visit the group at Talon. Otherwise, go check out talon.com, which is TALAN.com, and we will go through the process of making sure all of those are in the show notes. Having said that, I'm going to go bounce back up to Vlad, who is brimming with a question.
Yeah, so I wanted to expand on the entire implementation, or I guess integration side, right? And so last week, Dave and I had a conversation with Tim Brown, who has undergone a 7-year-long SAP deployment, right? And I'm assuming that you gentlemen are not that long of a lead time. So I wanted maybe to learn a bit more. What does it take in your world to deploy your solution ultimately, and who needs to be involved in maybe some of those conversations? You mentioned champions. I think you mentioned change management. So maybe what does the process look like?
Well, the people that have to be involved is preferably a little bit of everybody. Obviously, management needs to be on board and they need to convey why they're putting Total ETO into the rest of the team. The rest of the team need that conversation. They need to know it's coming. They need to know why it's coming, what the advantages are that they're going to get out of it so that they can all jump on board. They're all going to then be, more active in participating in that. The champions are just the leaders. They're the cheerleaders of the process as well, to make sure everybody else is doing, their smaller components as we get into there. For us, if you say 7 years, I would run away screaming. If it's 7 months, I still am not very happy. We always like to see ours in a 4 to 6 month platform. The only way we can do it, and I'll end my comment here because I know RJ wants to say some stuff too, is we can do the 4 to 6 month platform because we are fitting a niche, right? We're very specific. We already talked about the workflow. That's the workflow I'm dealing with. Don't come and ask me to do these little big, not little, big side projects to things that, we have to come in and redevelop the whole system for you. That's what other ERPs are. SAP obviously is good across a broad spectrum, but it does take a lot of work to get it to fit those broad spectrums. They really have to come in and analyze your business. Here, we already know what a machine builder and an SI business looks like. We only have that vertical. I don't have to branch off into 60 different segments. So by staying in that vertical, it helps us cut that implementation timeline down to months instead of years.
RJ, thoughts?
Yeah, I've heard some people call it phase zero in the ERP implementations. I remember hearing Elvis talking about it from your earlier podcast too. The big guys, the big systems out there, they're made for everyone, right? They're made that they could be adopted probably for almost any business, from a mom and pop lemonade stand to the biggest manufacturers in the world to whatever your business does. But it takes a lot of time to learn your business. It takes, I think that's what is usually referred to as that phase zero, learning your business. And then there's okay, we're going to now go ahead and implement it. And it's only as good as the implementer you're working with as well, right? So you have to be paired with a really strong implementer who can then learn your business or already knows it coming in. And that's the nuances Jay's leading to here, right? The reason we're able to help the small businesses that, sometimes it makes it tricky for the large players to fit into is because they have to go in and learn the business, then they have to go and tailor the product. And those all cost money and time, right? For both parties. And whereas we can come in and we'll still have to learn a little bit about your business because every business is still unique. There's still some uniqueness between how you do things. But when you've worked with, for all the example, as the robotics integrators that we work with, or all the control panel shops that we work with, they all have very similar challenges within each of those categories. Or if you're building custom machinery, like generic equipment, stuff like that. So we'll be able to understand pretty quickly and cut down that initial discovery phase zero kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then we're already able to go in and start connecting with the customer right away. We've got that expertise. The product's already pre-configured in an 80% sort of fashion, roughly speaking, right? And most of the time when we hear of a uniqueness, it's not like we haven't heard it before. It's just maybe not something everybody has, but it's not something that's so out to left field that we've never seen this uniqueness before from somebody else. So you're unique, just like everybody else, kind of a sort of a world, right?
Yes,
that's what helps get implementations down. So we've seen some really, really rocket fast implementations where people will have a hard time believing, but they can talk to the customers themselves where they've been able to implement in 6 to 8 weeks even. I don't want to say that's the average. I don't think that's necessarily an easy thing to achieve. Some things a number of things have to align to make that happen. But like Jay said, 6 months, we should be able to get going and have everything in the system as long as you're able to dedicate the time to it that you need to dedicate to it too, right? So it takes both parties to make that work.
Yeah. If I'm just I guess curious again on the deployment side, because I think the problems you're describing are very I want to say the biggest pain points, especially for middle management, right? Like those project managers, the teams that run the projects. And so ultimately, is there typically a organization-wide deployment, or could you, for example, deploy for a smaller team within a larger SI or machine builder that would benefit and then sell it upstream, right, to their management that would then deploy it maybe across the organization? Do you have those kinds of initiatives, or is it really the entire company needs to adopt in one fell swoop?
I don't think the whole company has to adopt it in one fell swoop. We see lots of staged implementations. A very common methodology is often spare parts orders. That's a whole separate workflow in our product, right? And it's an important part of the business. It's usually not affecting as many staff members at these system integrators. So some people are able to implement just that section as a starting point and then roll it out to others. There's lots of modules as well that you don't need to implement right away, like quality, right? That's not something that all of our customers, we call them non-conformances. There's lots of customers that have never implemented that module, or if they do, they implement it after the fact. It is meant to be, an ongoing relationship. We work with our customers every year, the same customers. So even though they're implemented, it's software, right? It's not hardware. So you're always evolving. The product's getting new updates. We're able to develop customizations to serve your requirements in lots of different ways to help bridge the gaps that might exist and to further optimize your organization. So it's a constant evolution for a lot of organizations. Other companies don't like that. They would rather just implement it, leave it as is, and that's okay too. We have lots of organizations who've solved their main challenges and they have a well-oiled machine now, and they don't want to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of mindset. And that's perfectly fine as well. But for those companies who are always looking to evolve, we're always willing to work with you to understand your next challenge, your next low-hanging fruit, and tackle that as well.
Yeah, and it's not an easy question by any means, right? Because I guess the challenges that I've seen is that ERP systems are very often pushed very top down, right? So the teams who are actually dealing with these problems don't always have a say. That's why I'm asking maybe how you deploy, and it's I guess in a unique scenario because you know the space very well and you understand the pain points of this sort of middle layer, right? And you can come in and implement, I guess, to some extent, a proof of concept, but maybe allow them to
That's a good
experience
point.
the solution. Yeah.
That's a good point. Sometimes they'll do pilot projects as well, as opposed to running the full gambit through. That's a very common approach as well. Some people will run it in parallel, right? It creates more work for the customer at the end of the day, but we're here to support them on whatever path they choose and guide them along the way. But the mirrored systems is certainly an option. Usually finance is the ones who definitely want that because they want that assurance, that warm and fuzzy hugs to make sure everything matches, right? That they don't have any setbacks. Operations might be a little bit more, especially if they don't have a system to begin with, they might be willing to commit more quickly to some of those types of things. But there's several different options for the implementation process, and everyone's got sort of their own ways to sort of do that. But yeah, those are a couple of different ways to do the phased approach. You maybe set up one workflow, pilot projects, mirrored systems, and then expand upon your usage. Just like an MVP kind of concept, right? Minimum viable product, same idea. That's a term from development. Same idea can be used for an implementation. Let's just get the core functionality working. We just want to get purchasing going. We're going to keep fabrication off to the side. Maybe we're not ready to bring over inventory right now. A lot of our customers don't even have inventory, right? Until COVID, at least. Then COVID, everyone started having inventory because everyone started to hoard HMIs and PLCs and stuff like that. But so yeah, lots of different approaches. Our implementation teams work with our customers to sort of set up that process that's unique to each customer, but follows a general repeatable pattern that we have that's tried and true. But we have various ways to implement them from there.
Absolutely. Guys, we have a question in the comments. It's not showing up on the restream, but I do have it over here on LinkedIn. D. Langston is saying exploring ERP solutions for machine builders is crucial. How do you see modern tools reshaping accuracy and collaboration in the industry? A nice, easy question for you guys.
A nice, easy, broad question. Thanks, Mr. Langston. Well, I mean, tech is always changing, right? So even with us, our last couple of years has been converting our platform over to a web platform, right? It gives accessibility. Now I can do things on my phone. I can do things on a tablet. Or I need the larger screen to do it. I still have my laptop or my regular computer with my 32-inch screens, right? So those types of tech challenges have been eliminated over the last few years. So ERP systems are finally catching up. Most of them are, anyways. And being able to do things like that, having collaboration outside of our space. A lot of the CAD systems now are allowing people to collaborate outside of their network. That wasn't, a very common thing even a couple of years ago, where you could give somebody access to your drawings to doodle on it and say, yeah, that's not going to work, or this is my concerns. So all of those technical challenges are going away as tech evolves. Even in web right now, the searchability and the functions that you get just natively from web that's meant to search and go on the internet and find things, just the interface is so much nicer than the old stuff as well.
RJ, thoughts?
Do I dare mention AI? I mean, isn't that the hottest topic going, right? There is a day at home in my personal life or in work life where we don't talk about AI in some shape or form or fashion. And I'm using it in new ways almost every day too. So AI is still really new for the most part, but I think it'll be integral to everything. It's really hard to even predict how and where it's going to go. I just learned about new challenges and new things to think about from speaking to our marketing director earlier today about it, or speaking to my wife about how she's utilizing it in her personal life, or in my personal life, shopping for a new cell phone rather than going on Amazon and searching. I started typing into Chat GPT. It's giving me the results, and I don't have to go and search as well. So it's changing.
Really interesting.
It's
Okay.
changing absolutely everything, and it's a matter of time before it's so integral to so many aspects. So we're a little bit behind on this. We recently got some Amazon Echo Dots and those Alexas where you can talk to them. We're a little bit behind. My wife didn't want to implement those for years, and now she's ready to do that to help some of the things that we do with our kids. But they don't have AI loaded yet, right, on that stuff. So it's a completely different set of interactions you're working with. AI is definitely going to, and I don't mean it from a buzzword perspective. I've never been a fan of using buzzwords. AI is truly revolutionary, and I think it's going to be as fundamental as internet and smart devices are to us today in 5 or 10 years, and it's going to completely change everything. So we have to be paying attention to it.
Yep.
We have to really master it. We have to embrace it in every different aspect, from development to product features to everyday usage, email construction. There's just so many utilization ways to utilize AI. And I don't think we even have a clue of all the ways it's gonna impact our world. So to me, I think that's something I'm spending a lot of time thinking about and looking at, and researching and seeing what other people are doing, and seeing where that's going to take us.
Yeah, and it's super interesting, right? Because as you said, I don't think there's solidified necessarily applications. Well, there certainly are applications using AI, but I think there's still a lot of different opportunities that people have not uncovered. The more conversations I have on that topic, the more it feels that highly technical individuals that leverage it for their workflows are benefiting a lot. And those who are maybe using it too early in their career and who are stumbling through AI or maybe falling behind because they've not built those fundamental blocks. And I would say, again, on the SI or machine builder side, you need to be highly technical. So I think some of the workflows will definitely change. I don't have the answers as to how, but people are experimenting with what can be done. It's going to be very interesting, I think. But maybe to ask you a follow-up question, right? So speaking of technology, and I know that Jay mentioned this very briefly in the introduction, right? So the integration to other tools, such as CAD software. I think this is a very important topic to discuss because I would say, at least in my ERP integrations, again, from a manufacturing end user standpoint, there was a lot of need to pull data, from the plant floor into an ERP so that you could understand how things are being done, or to facilitate, maybe some of the metrics. So I'm curious, when it comes to an SI or machine builder, right, what kind of integrations, either with different softwares, different tools, maybe development ideas you're doing, and ultimately what kind of problems and challenges does that solve?
Jay, you want me to take this?
You can start it, because I know I'm going to have something to say too.
All right, go for it. I'll go first then. That's fine.
Yeah.
So for us, our primary integration points are CAD, as you mentioned, you kind of Jay alluded to, and you brought up, when most of the customers or prospects we meet, as being a first system and last system in a lot of cases for a lot of these organizations, they almost always have a lot of spreadsheets and CAD. Some CAD, right? Because they have to do the mechanical design. Back in the day, there was a lot of AutoCAD for 2D electrical, and that's been moving towards some of the other platforms like AutoCAD Electrical, ePled, and SolidWorks Electrical. On the mechanical side, SolidWorks and AutoCAD's Inventor product, Autodesk's Inventor product are the most predominant that we see in the machine building space, and there's still some others as well. But we've built our own add-ins to go into these products, to go into SolidWorks and into Autodesk Inventor, so that we can keep the engineers and designers in their environment that they're used to. It's native. It's our product. It's not like we're relying on a third party. It's pretty integral to what our space and what we need to be able to do to help facilitate that data transfer of the bill of materials, of the parts that they need on the job out to our system. And it's even more important than just, hey, here's an export once in a while. we really promote the idea of concurrent design and build, or dynamic builds of materials. So the idea is that you don't wait till the design is fully complete before you start sending information over from engineering to procurement. It's really important that you start streamlining this information over as you have sections of your machine designed, right? So you may have the base designed. You want to get that over. You know what robot you're going to choose. You want to get that over. Maybe you figured out what end of arm tool you're going to use, or end effectors, which grippers, right? What are you for your project? Maybe you need to get a conveyor system ordered from a third party who's going to focus on that. And maybe they're going to build it custom for you. So you have to start moving along the sections and components of your machinery that's completed in design over to procurement, so they can get started on their various tasks. So they're not sitting around waiting on it. So having the native integration is super important. It's meant to be iterative. It's not meant to be one and done sort of when design is done, which is where repetitive manufacturing is very different than custom manufacturing. Is one of the starting pillars that makes it very different. In terms of other types of integration, there's lots of specialized tools out there now, right? We live in a world where there's highly verticalized systems for expense management, for project management, for the list goes on, purchase order automation and AP automation, and it's incredible what entrepreneurs and people who are creative have designed throughout there. So integration is very important. I think there's a lot of platforms out there now called iPaaS that are helping to bridge the gap between these different products and players like us. So that's an area we'll be exploring in the next few years as well, on how we can better integrate with all the different ecosystems that customers have, that they are starting to utilize, and where they maybe offer very highly focused specializations that maybe we would not be able to offer without it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Awesome.
And then there's always spreadsheets, Vlad. So, you got that complex estimating spreadsheet with 10,000 formulas in it, right? There's very few people, when they get that intricate, that they want to give that up, and we don't make them, right? So even just having simple things of understanding that, those are always custom integrations, because nobody's spreadsheet ever looks the same. But even those are important, right, to bring in, because we want that data for the budget, but I don't need to replace how they get it. I just need to give them supplementary tools for them to see it as they go along. So,
yeah, it always surprises me to what extent people can create intricate spreadsheets and how much effort, I guess, it takes to unravel that. I don't want to even call it technical debt. I don't know, organizational debt, I guess, would be the better word. But Dave, what are your thoughts?
there's hours and hours.
I think that was a very interesting comment from Vlad, a man who absolutely loves his spreadsheets, guys. I feel like we've started, and that's a good point to kind of pause on the spreadsheet conversation. JRJ, this has been awesome. We want to go ask you guys the same questions we ask all of our guests. Starting with predicting the future. And I'm open to, if you guys want to talk about the future of ERP or the future of software for machine builders and systems integrators, I'm open to either direction, but I would love to get the feedback from both of you. So which one of you is going to volunteer to go first? RJ.
All right, I was saying Jabe first, but that's okay. So
Always pointing.
software perspective,
I thought he was
I already
volunteering.
kind of alluded at it. It was AI,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
AI is definitely
Yes.
going to be the key to a lot going forward. Web, AI, web and AI. I mean, you're going to see every application delivered through a web browser. If it's not being delivered through a web browser, it's going to be dated, right? It's not going to survive in the future. So that's the two key components on the tech side, right? Delivered through a web browser and AI. We serve a lot of companies in the automation space, right? So for automation is another key angle. I feel like, in our times right now where we have such high inflationary costs, I feel like automation is key. I've seen a lot of reports that, North America is way further behind than a lot of other countries in terms of automation. And I think that's really key to combating inflation and increased prices. So that's where I see the future. I see a lot more automation happening. I see AI and web-based tech across the board. And yeah, Jay.
Yeah, I'll expand on that on the automation side of things, because I think where we're going to see for the future is automation is going to enter a lot more industries, and it's going to become more commonplace, right? Again, being behind in that cycle, we're already starting to see it, right? We're seeing a lot of automation come into things like agriculture and construction now, with like 3D printed houses being a process that we're trying to explore. And one of our clients is actually in that space, and we're going to see that grow and grow. Just with the market, with the employment statistics that we all have, right? There's just not enough people to fill the manufacturing voids that we want, and we want to keep continuing to have more and more manufacturing here. So the answer is going to be to continue to automate. And it's going to be for us to continue to educate our kids that STEM and technical fields are an awesome thing to get into. I'm so glad to see so much more in the last couple of years of like FIRST robotics. It seems to be growing, which is awesome to see, because we're going to need those resources. They're going to be very, very important, and it's not going to be 20 years from now. It's going to be 5 years from now. Like, it's, we need to start building on that now already, and getting more and more people into this field as they're exiting high school, and even the kids that are in grade 7 and 8 right now in public school, elementary school, that they get those skills and fall in love with automation like I did when I was 18, maybe even a little bit earlier than that, but 18 for sure. So that's my future, is we need more automation, and we're going to see it happen. So
shouts out to 2386 Trojans, Burlington, Ontario, the FIRST robotics team that we sponsor. Shouts out to them.
Very awesome. No, I think FIRST robotics is awesome. I wish that was a thing back when I was in school. I think that would be a lot of fun. And to Jay's comment, I love the concept of 3D printed houses, mostly out of concrete is what I'm seeing. I'm not sure I'd live in one, but I definitely have Vlad live in one. I don't know where that puts us, but that is where we're at. Guys, we want to ask for some career advice. Jay, I know you and RJ come from very different backgrounds and have ended up in a similar place. So Jay, if we can have you start this time, if someone is early career or maybe mid-career, looking to get into automation, looking to get into machine building, or even on the software side, what is your best piece of career advice for them?
Yeah, the software side, like I said, for me was completely accidental. I never thought I would get out of automation, and I still am involved in automation, just not directly. But I think you need to always be willing to explore, and always be willing to try new things, take on new roles. I always wore 15 hats as I was coming up through my career. And once you got figured out which ones you were good at, or which ones you liked, or hopefully both together, then you stick with them and learn some more. I went and took SolidWorks classes. We did a little bit in school, but I went and took them at night class after, just to learn more. I never became a designer, but it helped me understand what the engineers were going through as they were trying to develop these solutions, and be able to see what was going on in the CAD and sneak in there and make a couple tweaks and changes if I really wanted to, right, in the background. So always be learning, always look for educational ways and new things that you might be interested in that could help you and also your company in the process. And then I think you'll excel.
I love that. And then always make sure to go lock your drawings and have revision changes on, because you never know when Jay is going to go get in.
Don't give Jay PDM access.
Absolutely. RJ, other than not giving Jay right access to anything that you guys are building, career advice, if you don't mind.
Well, STEM's always STEM's a great way to focus in your education. FIRST robotics and programs and teams like that are great ways to help get our the youth ready for employment and getting into the workforce. In tech specifically, you always have to stay up to date. You have to embrace change. Technologies are constantly changing. Front end development is very important right now. AI is very important, but technology changes so fast, so you have to be willing to stay. And also career changes. Most people who go to school, I don't know what the numbers are like. I could make up some stats if you like, but people typically don't stay in the same career and throughout their whole career. Engineers often are doing other jobs, or my career's changed multiple times, and I'm sure that's true for a lot of people. So embrace that change and embrace it when it's taking you in a direction perhaps where you didn't predict your career was going. I've seen that a lot of times where somebody wants to go towards, that's what they envisioned their whole life, but their career path is naturally taking them towards B or something completely different. It's okay if you want to stay and focus on whatever it was. Then if that's what you want to do, then commit yourself to it, and absolutely go for it. But if you're unsure, you or perhaps sometimes ride the wave and see what happens. Sometimes it can take you to a path that you didn't foresee, and because how many of us can actually predict the future and know exactly where we're going to head, right? I wouldn't have predicted I'm going to be here. So I don't know how many of you can say the same. I know Jay can't. I've already heard that. So embrace that.
Absolutely, 100%. Fantastic advice from both of you. Thank you guys so much. So for our new listeners, we ask all of our guests for a book and/or content recommendation. And Jay and RJ said that in preparation, they both came up with exactly the same piece of content recommendation. And we're gonna go let Jay share it. So Jay, what do you have for us today?
Well, since I have very little time on my hands, I like to keep my reading short. It's usually automation specific. So my shout out today for content is to our friend, Mr. Sean Dotson, and the Automation Navigator that he releases every once in a while. I've read every piece. I love his insights. Again, somebody that started an automation business, sold an automation business, is now a CEO of another automation business. We love to see his insights, and it's not necessarily directly related, but often is in some way related to our field. So Automation Navigator is a read. I think both RJ and I.
Automation AMA. Right?
Automation AMA, but
No.
the publication is the Navigator. So
Mhm.
we read it on a regular basis. So that's it. And anybody willing to give me book recommendations, they can flood my LinkedIn with those, because I'd love to read some more audiobooks, preferably, please, because again, who has the time to sit and open a paperback these days? But that's where we're at.
Absolutely. For everyone at home or everyone listening in podcast form, Jay and RJ knew this was coming, and I saw like 90 minutes before we went live, Jay make the post on LinkedIn, who has a good book recommendation for me. And so I was happy to know it's for the upcoming travels, and not necessarily I'm in desperate need of a single good book recommendation to go give the guys in an hour.
But your question did spur it, though.
Good. Vlad has a list of books. For our non-long time listeners, we've been asking almost 200 episodes at this point for some book recommendations, and it started with, "Hey, if we enjoyed this conversation, Vlad has some Audible credits. What should he go download?" So I'd imagine Vlad has a very long list of Audible books that he has finished. In here. Oh, and Taylor is in the comments dropping the Automation AMA website. Thank you so much for that, Taylor. Guys, last question for you is, how can our listeners help? Who should reach out? Who are you guys looking to connect to? Kind of your open platform to talk about Total ETO. If you guys are hiring, if you're looking for customers, kind of what events you're going to be, where can people check you out?
Jay, I'll let you run with this.
Well, we're everywhere. I try to be everywhere, as everybody that knows me. If you're at a trade show and I'm not there, it's unusual. I would have been at ProMat today, even if I wasn't moving next week. So I'm a little bit busy preparing, getting this house moved. As you can see behind me, I have nothing left in my house. But we'll be at Automate, of course. That's our biggest flagship show in May in Detroit again. I think for the last time, sadly. We love Detroit. So we'll be there. You can come find us there. Total ETO always has a booth, and pretty much a big chunk of our staff on site for that one. And we'll be at other shows this year, like FabTech. We'll be at Pack Expo in Las Vegas as well. and you'll be able to find us at those. And if you're at any other show, if you called me in advance, I'm probably either myself or Taylor Dykstra will be walking it, and you'll be able to find one of us. So Taylor took the ProMat show this year. He's there right now, enjoying that and material handling. So that's where you can find us.
Yes, I would say Taylor is actually in the comments at the moment.
Yeah.
He says hi from ProMat.
Yeah, he's there now.
Here. There we go. He
There you
says
go.
hi from ProMat. I think Vlad and I are both desperately trying to share the comment at the same time. And so on our combined fifth try, there we go. Guys, this has been awesome. I look forward to seeing you guys at Automate, if not at some point sooner. I don't know. I don't think I have any extra time in my life to see you guys at any point sooner. So I look forward to seeing you guys at Automate, and I'm sure we'll get some good pictures and have some good conversations together. If you guys have made it this far, thank you so much for hanging out with us on this ERP themed episode of at this ERP themed episode of Manufacturing Hub. We want to thank Talon for going ahead and sponsoring this entire theme, talking all about ERP. If you're not already, please make sure that you're connected with Jay and RJ following Total ETO. Please make sure that you're following and check out Talon, as well as following Vlad, myself, and Manufacturing Hub on LinkedIn. If you guys are watching on the normal live or on the feedback, all of those should be linked in the post. So thank you guys for that. If you made it on YouTube or podcast format, please do the like, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, all of those awesome things. When I go through the process of remembering to remind people, and Vlad goes through the process of launching the episodes, more people listen to us, which is pretty awesome, guys. But until next week, we'll see everyone soon. Thank you.